So I apologize for being a few minutes late. There was a train, unfortunately, on the tracks that didn't want to move, but it finally did, and so here we are. So, Mr. Swanson, appreciate you being here tonight for this workshop and for this presentation. So we'll turn the time over to you.
All right, excellent. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. Scott Swanson, Director of Aviation, City of Caldwell. So wanted to hold this workshop just to discuss proposed changes I have for the minimum standards and the rules and regulations that govern user operations on the airport here in Caldwell, at the Caldwell Executive Airport. And then the biggest thing coming out of that, from my opinion, is just going to be the look and view and professionality of those documents and how they look to the public that may be from outside the city looking to fly to the city and doing their research before they come into the airport. Kind of one of those the first impression pieces as coming in. Be like, okay, looking at Caldwell, oh, this stuff looks professional, up to date, really articulate in what I'm supposed to do when I come fly in here. I like it. So that's going to be a point. Also on that, within the rules and regulations and minimum standards that currently exist, our rules and regulations were revised in 2020. I do believe that before that it was 2012. The minimum standards were revised in 2022 or amended, and they just added a paragraph into some of the inspection criteria for tenants, giving them 60-day notice to either allow an inspection or not allow an inspection. That would be a violation. The maps in the back of the rules and regulations that dictate the flight routes and the kind of imagery they have on there is from 2012. So one is just to kind of bring all of this up to date, and getting everything as professional looking as it possibly can moving forward for that first impression going forward, and then giving everybody as much information as possible how they should be conducting operations on the airfield. Because all we can do from my position and the position of council and the mayor is just, hey, I recommend that you probably fly this way at the airport. Because at the end of the day, once an aircraft or a helicopter leaves the ground, it is then the responsibility of FAA and anything that goes on there. We can only control them so much up to the point to where they leave the ground or for an airplane to take off, roll, and that nature. But if we can give them as much information as possible going in, what they're expected to do, how they're expected to talk, frequencies they're going to talk on, what they're going to call the airport, altitudes to be at, patterns to fly in, it's just going to make, one, get everything onto one line, one page, everybody talking the same as much as possible, which will make the environment in the air that much safer moving forward. Because we do have a very busy airport with our 540 aircraft and 147,000 annual operations a year. Is somebody taking off or landing every 3.5 minutes, 365 days a year at this point. So this is kind of step one. Moving forward is just updating these, and then as we get further along with these updates, we get people understanding the importance and everything, and then we can continue to roll on from there as far as updating other documentation from the airport. So I did place at each one of your positions kind of a 10 question highlights of what I was looking at when I did this. And then the biggest one is going to be the Advisory Circular 150-5190-7, and that is the FAA's AC for minimum standards for commercial aeronautics activity on airports and what that provides. And the biggest thing that this document should provide is not per se what people are allowed or not allowed to do as a commercial entity on the airport, but ensuring that the customers that entity is going to have on the airport are protected to the biggest extent possible with what they're expected to be receiving as a service from said commercial entity on the airport. So that'll go in and state, if you are an FBO or fixed base operator like Silverhawk and Midfield Aviation and in the future Sprintbach, you know, if you provide service as a fixed base operator, I expect you to provide all these things with it. You know, that's going to be aircraft handling, maintenance, fuel, 24/7 communication access if I need an emergency, something coming in, the ability to move aircraft around the ramp, space to store aircraft, and a multitude of every other things that go into that document. Another one too, I think kind of a big one. So the current minimum standards are titled the Treasure Valley Executive Airport at Caldwell. From my understanding, the airport held that name for a year, and then went back to Caldwell, or went to Caldwell Executive. So Caldwell Industrial, Treasure Valley Executive, back to Caldwell Executive, which we are now sticking with. The current rules and regulations, again, titled Caldwell Industrial Airport, and it still has the old frequency in there of 122.7. So the airport's frequency is 123.0, and so that's an update in there as well. Updated traffic pattern description, kind of talked about that. That one in there is from 14 years ago. So I stuck a colored picture in there with colored diagrams of squares, very easy to follow. If I'm in this type of aircraft, I should fly here at this altitude. And if I do that and talk on the radio as a pilot should, 99.9% of the time I would be just fine. I also included in the minimum standards the inclusion of the City of Caldwell business permitting process. So I essentially just took that business permit application from the city, attached it to the back of the minimum standards, and then that will go out to everybody as well, because I think that's something that that's going to be much more focused on coming this next fiscal year, is getting everything in line, up to date, and done properly. Also included a special events request form within the rules and regulations and minimum standards. And that way, if at whatever point somebody does want to hold a special event, they've already gotten the information given to them. You know, hey, fill this form out, get in contact with the city clerks, they'll point you in the right direction. And as long as you're checking all these boxes and meet all these requirements, you can do that. Removal of fee structure for violations. So historically in the rules and regulations, what exists currently is you have violations 1 through 5. 1 starts at $10, and then 20, 30, 40, and I think violation 4 is $100. Violation 5 is your lease is terminated. Toward at the end of the day, you look at it now, I don't think somebody who owns an airplane in a hangar or rents a hangar, owns an airplane, or however it works out, is really going to be concerned about a $10, $20, $30 fee if they don't do something right. I'd much rather move forward, and then this will kind of be focused more whenever the leasing policy comes out for the airport later this year. This is where that will be grasped on your violations. You will get subsequent inspections per violation to fix said thing. And then if, as an individual, you decide just to not to fix it and ignore the city, then at said point your lease could be terminated, depending on what the violation is for. Also included in the rules and regulations, the FAA Advisory Circular 9066 Charlie, which is the FAA's document for non-towered flight operations. Essentially, it's a probably 45-page document that tells you exactly how to fly at an airport without a control tower and what you should be doing. Again, went in more descriptive arrival, departure pattern flight procedures. More detailed descriptions of expectations for commercial activities on the airport that will assure safe, efficient, and adequate level of operation and services that are offered to the public. And that is including things, we have fixed base operator, or FBO, usually full service entities. And then below that, for somebody who just does like airframe and power plant or just electronics, the reference to that is normally a SASA, or Special Aviation Service Operation. And so that got included into that document. Got that. And then overall, it's just that cleaner, more professional look is what I'm looking at. And I did bring 2 examples with me as well. I know I emailed them out to everybody, but I also have copies here that somebody can look at if they want to as well. And then the one last question is the Councilor Stoddard, the question from you I got. How many of these requirements are not met by our current airport operations? So with that, and here's where it gets funny with how the FAA regulates or does not regulate these things. So there is no FAA regulation that mandates you have rules and regulations or minimum standards. However, there are multiple regulations that highly recommend that you have rules and regulations and minimum standards, just because of the amount of activity going on. So as far as things that weren't being done before to what's being done now, I would say there's really a minute amount of change. All we've done is kind of just, one, put it into a cleaner package that's more legible, more readable, more understandable, and then also protected more areas within the minimum standards for the customers that are going to be on the airfield using services. And that's what we've done there, and just included a little bit more language that exists now than at whatever point these were put out initially.
I have a question for you, Scott.
Yes,
So,
sir.
if I'm in Williston, North Dakota, filing, say, flight plan to Caldwell in a corporate jet, will these show up? Any of these regulations show up, what I need to do and all that?
So if you are filing a flight plan, say like on ForeFlight, or you call flight service and file a flight plan, those regulations would not show up.
Okay,
So there could possibly be a way, I would have to look into it, and I would owe you an answer on this, on where I could incorporate these into ForeFlight and get them populated on there, but I'm not for certain on that. This would be a living document on the city website for the airport.
okay. And the other question I had is, now that you revised these, were we in violation of any of these at all before?
No.
None, okay. Good, thank you.
Okay, yes.
This is Council Register.
Hello. So I guess maybe Chuck's question, or Councilor Stoddick's question answered mine. So the pilots have access to this on the website?
Once it's official and codified, yes, they'll have access to it on the website.
Okay, and then is this a brand-new document or a version of an old one? Did
So
you have it?
this document itself is brand new. We do have our old one, which is here. And then I just went in and rewrote the entire thing.
So will it replace that old one then?
It will replace this old one.
Okay. And then, there have been some questions about being able to store stuff, either in the hangar or around the airport, like trailers and things like that. Are you addressing that? Are they allowed to?
So
How does that work?
it's a very fine line. So the FAA's definition of aeronautical use of a hangar is that you have an active aircraft in the hangar. An active aircraft means it worked in the previous 90 days or will work in the next 90 days. And that aircraft or aeronautical use is not impeded by anything else stored in the hangar, with the key verbiage being impeded. So this is saying, for example, if somebody has a very large hangar and they have an airplane or two in it, but then they have a bunch of other crap or stuff, whatever they want to store in there, ping pong tables, RVs, boats. From the FAA's determination, this is what I've read and people I've talked to at the district office, is that as long as their airplane can go in and out of the hangar without having to move anything else out of the way, the hangar is within aeronautical use.
So can we make sure about that? Because I heard that the FAA had come down on that and they weren't allowing that anymore, or at least they had some more rules. But also, can they then store their stuff on the outside of the hangar, or does it have to be in the hangar, like a trailer, let's just say? Can it be parked outside the trailer?
So
Or the hangar?
if you wanted to store if you had something like a trailer, an RV or whatever that was stored outside of the hangar, I think I've allowed it in here for up to 2 weeks at a time with notification to airport management. So as myself, Rob, Lisa, let us know. That way we know about it, we know where it is. Yeah, you can do that until this time. As far as just leaving something outside the hangar, no.
Okay,
So,
so it's
yeah.
not going to become just a storage unit on
Absolutely
the
not.
outside or whatever, and you guys are going to enforce those changes?
Correct, yeah. So I have that captured in here. And then I think what Lisa and Rob are the most excited about is for next fiscal year, starting in October, I'm doing all the hangar inspections personally.
Okay, good. And then, were there lease owner or leaseholders that were running businesses out of those hangars before?
So as far as inside the fence hangars or like street access hangars,
Well, I don't know. I mean, this was a while ago, that I heard this a couple of years ago, where I heard that
Yeah.
people were either running some kind of business out of their hangars or something, and can they do that?
So I think a lot of it comes down to like, you can only enforce what you can see. And that's the
But you
most.
have to have an airplane in
difficult
there,
part.
right?
Correct. Per se, if they had an airplane in there and then were doing stuff on their laptop or, selling stuff on Etsy, that's not something somebody looking at the hangar is really going to know unless you just have saran wrapped pallets sitting all over the place.
But you're gonna do inspections?
Yes. So,
So any of the storage businesses, whatever, you're gonna uncover and
yeah.
figure it out?
Yeah, as far as I know, right now, we only have one authorized non-aeronautical business on the airport.
What is that?
And that is, I believe it is Thunder Mountain. They do some sort of trucking or whatever it is.
And then are you having another business come, the armory place, or?
Ideally, yes, that would be ideal. So, but they would also have an aviation aspect to that business as far as how that would work, bringing product in and out from the airport via airplane for them, which would be ideal and make great use of the airport as we move forward. And plus with some federal changes to the cargo allotments and weights, we may, there's a potential if we focused on some more cargo operations, we could get some more entitlement funding later down the line based off weights coming in and out of the airport. So,
Yeah, I've heard about the armory place, where they
Yeah.
make bullets, I guess.
Yeah, yes, the facility would be a primer making facility, which would be the, part of the cartridge that goes into the end of the shell.
When is that coming? Like, how do we figure that out? Is that coming to council, or?
That will come to council. Right now, I have it up at the FAA office because they would be the ultimate decider on what can and cannot go on the airport. If the FAA says it's okay, and hey, you need to do it within these parameters, and these are your restrictions on doing this process, at that point, I would get with Federated, work that piece out, and then bring that entire package to council. Ideally for a workshop to begin with, and then to be accepted and approved later on, or wherever we'd want to work that. But yes, unfortunately, that federal piece up front, the FAA is kind of
Yeah,
the dad as far as when it comes to the airport property itself. So,
Good. Counselor Allgood?
Yeah, Scott, some of the discussions that have happened in the past are about access control onto the airfield and conduct on the airfield. Is there a portion in this that addresses that?
there is.
People allowing friends and stuff, giving passcodes, getting them in the gate?
Yep, that's.
What is the rules on that?
Oh, none of that is allowed. None of that has ever been allowed. And actually, I think we just went through a code change yesterday evening or today on the airport due to things of that nature. And it's actually pretty good. It'd be nice, I need to film Lisa doing it sometime. But so Lisa gives a brief along with Rob to everybody that starts a lease on the airport. And within that, she covers everything in crazy minute detail, because I about fall asleep in my office listening to it at this point now. But she is definitely hits on the fact of, piggybacking in through the gates, just letting random people in. So nobody gets any codes anymore. Everybody is given a magnetic scan card at this point. And then we're going to try to phase out the old garage door clickers as much as possible as well. It's just going to take that turnover to get those back. But ideally, in a perfect scenario, all the users would have cards and all emergency services would have a code. And then it just wouldn't even be an issue. So we can get there, it's just going to take time and figure out where all these clickers and codes and cards went out to. But
It's been a while since I had discussed it. I was on the airport commission for a while.
yeah,
Are all the gates linked now?
all the gates are linked. So one card will work for every gate. If you have a code, one code will work for every gate. And then I think where some of the disconnect has come in, so historically when people have been building, they'll get like a builder's code or a code specific to their name, what they're doing, that they can give to the people that are building and all that stuff, and then once the building is completed, that code gets deleted.
Okay.
Of course, can be anywhere from 3 months to 18 months going on in that building process on
Yeah.
how that works. But yeah, it's definitely, I like to use the term herding cats. So,
Yeah.
yes. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We're good. Any other questions for Mr. Swanson? Okay, well, you're doing an excellent job of herding cats out there, so really appreciate everything you're doing at the airport. Couldn't really be more pleased with it, so this is exciting for the future too, to see what's to come. So thank you so much for all your work and efforts out there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, for sure. Okay, and that was the only item I believe we had on our workshop this evening. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Okay, so that'll conclude our workshop, and then we'll be back here at 6 PM for our regularly scheduled city council meeting.